Well, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Ron Paull, and I will call this meeting to order for Council Meeting Number 24, Tuesday, October 24, 2023. I'd like to recognize that we meet on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO DENE Nation, and I will be looking for a motion to approve our agenda tonight, but we do have two late agenda items. The first item is item D1, delegations. We have a delegation tonight regarding Foundry, BC, and also under K5, there will be a staff report regarding Airport Capital Assistant Program grant, and Director Norburn will be reporting on that. So with those two late additions, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Runge, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so now we've approved the agenda. Now we need a motion to adopt the regular council meeting minutes of October 17, 2023. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Vic, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have no presentations, and as I said, we do have a delegation, and we have Amanda Alexander and Melissa Cailleaux from they're with YMCA in Prince George, I guess. So if you ladies could come forward, the floor will be yours. So you just need to press the button until your mic lights up and you're ready to go.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come here today. Appreciate it was on complete short notice, and really excited to share with you an opportunity for the City of Quesnel. My name is Amanda Alexander. I'm the Chief Health Equity Officer for YMCA BC, and this is Melissa Cailleaux, who's the Director of Community Health Programs for our northern region of YMCA BC. I'd like to echo the acknowledgement of the traditional and unceded territory of the local First Nations of LHTAKO DENE, and really appreciate the ability to come here today and share with you an opportunity for the City of Quesnel to consider. But first of all, I'd like to share with you a little bit of background about the YMCA. So YMCA is very well known for gym and swim, but we do a lot more of health and wellness provision aside from our gym and swim. We're the largest provider of childcare and provide childcare, the largest provider within British Columbia as well as across the country. We're really invested in this program because of the importance of early learning and giving children the really important building blocks to have the best opportunities for entering into school. We also provide community programs, one of which is the Foundry that we're here to talk to you today. So we are the lead organization, have been for the Prince George Foundry site for the past 6 years, and we were one of the first pilot sites across the province, the one of 5 that were selected. This year, January 3rd of 2023, we unified with 2 other YMCAs, so hence the movement from the YMCA of Northern BC to YMCA BC. So we're a unification of the Kamloops YMYW and also the Greater Vancouver YMCA. And we did this for the notion of stronger together. So we're all 3 very well-positioned, strong YMCAs, but we knew we could do more together and have more robust back-of-house systems to support the work that we're doing and be able to reach and serve more communities that we're looking for supports from the YMCA. So we are really excited to share with you today one particular opportunity that they'll have, which is we are the operator of Foundry Prince George, but we have been invited to provide by the City of Quesnel, not so much the stakeholders in Quesnel, pardon me, to lead a proposal development for Foundry. So I'm sure that many of you are aware that there was a application that was submitted previously that was unsuccessful, but the community stakeholders are speaking to us about the desire still to enhance the amount of services that an integrated youth service initiative like Foundry could bring. So what is Foundry? Foundry its mission is to provide holistic support to young people ages 12 to 24. It's supporting not only youth, but also their families to give the best holistic health opportunities moving forward. So it provides social service support, mental health, substance use, peer support, those with lived experience, an opportunity for drop-in. So when youth are having that particular experience where they really need support in that moment, the idea is that you can walk in for services at that moment, whether that might be primary care where you're looking for support from a health physician, that everything is under one door and is at ease of access for youth. There is a provincial network of 16 operational sites and more in development. And right now there's an opportunity to put forth an application for funding to become one of the new sites. It is meant to be integrated, so bringing together the services that are existing through partnership, but then augmenting those service gaps to provide the additional services that are specifically needed or supported by the community of Quesnel. It is, so the YMCA BC would be the lead organization, or proposing, given the invitation, to be the lead on this application. But support would come from Foundry Central. So they really have been the brainchild of this particular movement that has really transitioned the way that youth engage with services. And so they provide the framework and supports that allow that if you walk into a Foundry, whether that's in Quesnel or whether that might be on Vancouver Island, that you're getting the same look and feel and service delivery model, but that is adapted to community needs given the context of the community. So it's a perfect hybrid of being able to reflect what's important in the community, but also ensuring that the same quality service provision, like access to medical care, for example, or mental health supports, is under one umbrella.
Okay, so talk a little bit about the current opportunity. So right now there is funding available for 12 new centres across BC. This would bring the network size for Foundry to 35. So you can appreciate that Foundry is becoming a major player in how young people and their families access care. On average, it takes 18 to 24 months to open doors as a Foundry Centre if the community is selected. So there is a nice chunk of time to continue to do community building and relationship work if Foundry Quesnel was selected as one of the sites to move forward. The current funding opportunity involves $1.5 million of capital support, $200,000 towards development support, so funding a project lead to do some of that work with youth and families and local agencies, First Nations, and et cetera, while the Foundry is being developed and the capital phase is being worked through. And as well, it would bring into the community an annual operating budget between $600,000 to $1 million. And that's scaled on community based on size, based on need, based on the numbers of young people and families being served in the community. So that's why that range is there. Additionally, this money that's available in this funding round is not all that goes into Foundry. So really looking to leverage partnerships with community organizations through staff contributions, through in-kind contributions, and then of course the invaluable expertise that some agencies would bring and provide. This is long-term funding, so not a project that's going to be around for a short period of time. The money is from provincial health dollars through the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions. And initially, as Amanda spoke to, we operate Foundry Prince George. Initially, there was 3 years of funding attached to that, and that has since been rolled into health budgets in terms of long-term support for the Foundry to have sustainability and be present in the community. The current application phase closes quickly, so the deadline is November 7th. The timeline after that is that communities who will be shortlisted would be identified in January, and all communities would hear back. And then there's a convening process where current Foundry site leads, Foundry Central Office, and youth and families from across the province would review shortlisted applications and make recommendations on which communities would move forward beyond that. And then final decisions are meant to be shared in March as to whether the community is successful or not. And that's also a really positive process that would have feedback for sites that are not successful in moving forward or that need to make additional changes to their process. I just wanted to highlight a few things. Given the short timeline involved, we've been having as many meetings as possible, but knowing that we haven't reached all of the people that we need to reach. We're going to make our best effort to connect with as many folks as possible before the application deadline. But in the conversations we've had so far, we just wanted to highlight a few things. So I think that there was some concern around the YMCA operating Foundry Prince George, and it would be an extension Foundry site there. Really, we bring our lead agency experience in Prince George as a strength to the application. We really understand the Foundry model and have relationships in that network, but would be really clear that Foundry Quesnel would be its own unique site, certainly not a replication or extension of a Prince George site or any other site in the community. And we're just really honored to be here and learning about the community and all its complexity and needs and strengths. And so if a Foundry Quesnel was successful, it would very much have its own identity. I wanted to share a little bit, though, because there's also been questions from folks just kind of about what the impact in the community has been. So Foundry is not there to solve every problem that young people and their families may experience, but we know that it makes a really significant and positive impact in the community. So just sharing a few stats from Prince George so you can understand the work that's being done there. In the last 6 months, from January to August of this year, we saw 777 unique young people come through our doors. 365 of those were new intakes. So Foundry's model is that youth are constantly being able to access service. Intake is ongoing. And we delivered 5,060 unique points of service. Our demographics look like about 34% Indigenous youth in that time period, and that's really fluctuated in the 6 years that we've been open between 30 and 40%. And really significantly, 86% of young people coming in for services at Foundry, and this is replicated across the province at other sites, they report being in high or very high levels of distress. So really trying to meet young people who desperately need some services and supports and who are experiencing high levels of mental health distress. One of the statistics that we always look at is that youth who didn't have an opportunity to attend a Foundry identify often, 31% would have gone nowhere for services. So these are young people that are not showing up in services elsewhere and who are trying to manage things on their own, maybe successfully, but chances are they're really struggling. And then a further 20% of youth would have gone back to family and friends who may or may not have the ability to support that young person to the extent that they need. So I mentioned really that Quesnel would be its own unique application, a Foundry Quesnel, that would be led by the YMCA as the operator, but would involve local partnerships, local expertise, and positions and providers would be based in Quesnel and surrounding area. So not looking to transplant folks in from other communities or from Prince George rather to deliver an exact replica of what's in Prince George. We have some things we know would probably work well here in Quesnel, but also some things that would function really differently based on Quesnel's needs. And again, a commitment to continuing to engage local partners. in this phase of the application, but also if we were successful in moving forward to work with local partners, community agencies, the city, First Nations, youth and families, of course, and then other stakeholders in the community.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Certainly a welcome presentation, even though it is last minute. Would you have the capability of sharing your slides with us? I mean, I know that we're hopefully going to make a positive decision on this one tonight, but there's some good information in there that I think would be of value to council. I'm going to open the floor up to questions, and then I've got a couple of questions on my own. So any questions from council at this point? Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for coming tonight, ladies. Much appreciated. You say this process is really in its beginning for the application, but what partners have you reached out with or reached out to in Quesnel thus far? Where would you find some of those partnerships?
Sure. So we were invited in. I believe that there was a larger community meeting involving about 20 different community service agencies, and someone from MCFD was tasked, because she had a relationship with us through Foundry Prince George, with reaching out to see whether we'd be interested in being a lead agency, and invited me into to a meeting to discuss that, to share our experience with Foundry, to talk about our capacity as the YMCA. We really wanted to ensure that we weren't stepping on any toes coming in as newcomers to the community, and that there was no other application being considered by a local agency. So we met with that larger group. Since then, we've had some one-on-one meetings, and I've done some workshops around some of the gaps in the community, strengths and needs, and what a Foundry would mean to the city of Quesnel. So some of the players that we have spoken with are Northern Health, the Center for Child Development, who I believe hosted the application the last go-round. We talked to the Women's Center here, the Seasons Shelter staff, and I have reached out to the school district. We've talked with MCFD, various departments with MCFD. We met with someone from LHTAKO, DENE, yesterday, and are committed to continuing to follow up on leads of people who have been suggested. So by no means have we reached out to everyone, but we have a long list of people to connect to in the next short while, and then a commitment to deepening those relationships further.
Thank you. And I just got one more question regarding the capital funding. The 1.5 million, is that the total pool, or is that per Foundry location for the 1.5 capital, 200K development?
The 1.5 would be for a Foundry Quesnel. And I know with building costs changing constantly and costs just going up and up, the best guess that they have for the total cost of a Foundry is between $2.5 or $3 million, depending on the size of the community and the size of the build and things like that. So it's a significant portion of what's needed, but there would be additional capital fundraising required, which is part of the responsibility of the lead agency.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vic. I think I saw Councillor Runge. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, and thanks, Councillor Vic. You just took one of my things here. I was wondering where we are with regards to engagement, with regards to community members, because there are, you did mention a few, but I think there's many still out there. You also mentioned that previously we were not successful in getting a Foundry program. What were we missing at that time on the last go-around? Because you say we get feedback on things that we're missing to change in the future. What was our city missing on our last application?
I don't have access to the specific feedback because we weren't part of that Foundry Quesnel application. But I know in general, and I had the privilege to be part of the convening process, the sites that didn't move forward usually was based on lead agency strength and the depth of community partnerships. So the level of integration already happening naturally in the community that would support the highly integrated services that would be required to facilitate facilitate a Foundry site. That was really the deciding point for the Foundries that weren't successful. And some communities just had that to a greater degree of readiness, that they were ready to move forward at that point. Certainly all of the communities considered, could potentially move forward for a Foundry, but there was some underpinning work that needed to be done to be successful.
I might also add experience in the sectors and the various areas of service delivery. So commitment to cultural safe work, really key. The ability to lead mental health services or be able to support or have oversight for mental health is a huge component of the Foundry model. Being able to have the infrastructure to develop the partnerships that will allow complex integration. Like, it sounds very simple, but sharing information. So that's a key piece. That sounds simple, but very difficult when it's across ministries, being able to share information, being able to sort of walk carefully as a lead organization to respect the individuality of those partnerships, but also lead them to a place where they're working collaboratively in a model. So the Y has an opportunity to, I think we show up really respectfully and engaging with teams, and we would want to be doing that as well to bring the best out of community organizations. And then we do have experience that would support the different levels of service that they're looking for. But it is a very competitive process. Many communities want to have a Foundry too, and so the level of application process is very competitive. So it may have been a very solid application, but just because of the level of a competition that exists and people wanting to leverage those funds and bring those funds to their community, that might have also been a factor.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess adding to that a little bit is just, this is such a tight timeline. We're looking at 2 weeks here. You talked to one of our Indigenous communities yesterday, as you said. I'm just wondering if that's enough time. I love the idea. I think it's a great idea. The question is, does this funding come along again in the future, like next year? Do we take some time to actually get to talk to all our partners? Because the worst thing that could happen is we put a process forward and one of the partners somehow states something that doesn't go
So
back.
in terms of preparing the application, I think Foundry Central Office is really clear that this work won't be done in the timeline that it takes to put together an application. They want to know that initial start has been made and some key players who would contribute staff or resources to Foundry may have been identified, and that you've also, I guess, set the stage for future partner development. So they're not expecting everything to be clear. Really, this process is about identifying who has capacity as a lead agency, what are some of the things that they could bring, and who are some of the key players and what might their potential contributions look like. They're not looking for everything to be sorted out, but enough to consider the community. And then again, there's that 18 months to a couple of years to do that deeper development work, and that's well resourced in that time. So by the time your Foundry opens its doors, those conversations have happened, those relationships have been developed, and those partnerships are much better defined.
So my final question on this then goes to Councillor Vic's question with regards to the $1.5 million. So you were saying that funding would then be fundraised by
YMCA BC.
YMCA? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Runge. I'm going to go to Councillor Rudenberg now.
Thank you. So nice to see you again. I'm glad that you clarified that whole piece around not having all the partners on board, because it's important to understand that this is an 18 to 24 month process once we are successful. Let's be positive about this. And that's where all those nitty-gritty pieces happen. And we know that it takes way longer for people to get into the community and actually build those relationships. Coming from Prince George, coming into our community, it takes a while to build those relationships. And so having, what you did yesterday and some of the work you've done prior to this meeting, I think is important. I was part of the meetings, in regards to the question about what failed the last time. I don't even know if it was so much a fail as the inexperience of the people who were trying to put the piece together. And when you say about the lead agency strength, I think that was one of the pieces that the groups that wanted to see Foundry come to Quesnel struggled with, about who was going to take that lead. And I think that was one of the biggest pieces that kind of was hard for everybody, because they were all struggling with their own, trying to keep their own not businesses, but their own societies moving forward, and not thinking they had enough time and energy to be that lead agency. That 1.5, when you say needing fundraising, that's if you do the green build, right? And I know that that's what they like to do, because they know that the kind of services that end up being offered, if you don't have a green build, it's hard to add on to what building you might have. And so that's why they say that 1.5 plus fundraising to actually build a green build. And I know that there's opportunities. If there was something sensational out there that they could buy and renovate, I'm pretty sure that could be worked on. The other piece is just the fact that, you're starting to get commitment from other agencies. That's huge, right? Because that's the other piece that I don't think was there last time when they did this. And they knew they weren't going to be successful. I think they I remember them saying, we're going to put it in there and we'll just learn lessons. And so trying to find that original paper would be great. And I'm not sure who has that in their files somewhere. But I think those two pieces about the lead, there, but not really, and so it's much stronger this time from what I'm understanding. So I'm looking forward to seeing council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. I have Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation. A lot of it's been talked about through the other councillors as well, but I think that having an agency like yourselves leading the charge and having that experience could make the biggest difference for us. This is so needed in our community. It's just been the capacity of some of the organizations, as you're well aware. Some of the numbers, I've worked with at-risk youth before, and the numbers are disturbing. 86% very high or higher, very high distress. It's disturbing, and there are a lot of kids in this, youth in this city that could really use some help. There's no doubt about it. So I think you're going to get people to help. I know that people have been talking about it for years and really wanted to do it, but it's just having that agency to drive it. So, I think you can look to us. I'm hoping you can look to us for a letter of support at least, but you've got to keep in touch with us. If there's anything that you need, there's going to be people on this council, or maybe even staff, as far as, I don't want to speak for staff, but applications and things like this that maybe we can help with. So thank you very much for everything you're doing, and I support it 100%.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Anyone else before I jump in? A couple of things. You mentioned that there are 16 sites at present, and are any of them, other than Prince George, in north central British Columbia?
In the north, Foundry Burns Lake has just broken ground on their new build and is expected to be operational in a year. And Foundry Terrace is currently operational.
Good show.
Absolutely, sorry.
Does your
Foundry Caribou Chilcotin as well, Williams Lake opened, I believe, this time last year.
Okay.
So those are the northern sites.
Does the application have to be so specific that it would identify a location, or can that come later? Okay, that's good. And also, I mean, it would be, at this table, the city of Quesnel that would be providing a letter of support, provided we get a motion to do that. But I have to ask if it would be advantageous to have the Caribou Regional District also sending a letter of support. When you think about it, we have more people living in the greater Quesnel area than we do in the city. So it's not just a city issue. It's a regional issue. And do regional districts sometimes join with municipalities to strengthen the application process?
I think that it would be incredibly welcome to have that support. I think that the more folks that may be accessing or see benefit within the region and want to support, that would strengthen the application.
Yeah, but I will say that because of the time constraint, it would be impossible to get a letter of support from the regional district, and it really wouldn't so much come from the regional district in total, but more from the 4 northern directors that are in the Quesnel area. So that's something that we can talk about later on down the road. Are there any more comments coming or questions coming from council? I will entertain a motion if anyone is. Councillor Elliott, you're moving a letter of support? Absolutely. Thank you. And Councillor Rudenberg is a seconder. Is there any discussion? Are we all in favor? Nobody's opposed to that one, so that is a good news item. So thank you very much for your presentation, and we look forward to positive results down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so we have no items arising from previous special council closed meetings. We have no unfinished business. We have committee reports, and just a minute, I got to catch, it's over the page. Committee report is, the first one is the Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee with Councillor Vic to report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is a recap of our meeting that we held on October 11th. One of the biggest components of that meeting we've actually already dealt with at our last council meeting, which was a review of our next 10 years managing solid waste in our area. And council passed that plan. But of course, we did have a good conversation with Tara Grady, and we look forward to some of the future projects helping us to divert waste from our landfill, including an enhanced reuse center, pilot projects, including commercial recycling, composting at a local farm, and encouraging landfill bans on certain items. So there are some great ideas embedded in that 10-year plan, and we look forward to their implementation in the future. We moved to the next big item on that agenda was snow removal, and we had special guests from Public Works who basically reviewed the city's entire strategy for snow removal. The committee reflected that the city's snow removal service is very well regarded in the community, and in fact it compares very competitively with neighboring communities in terms of the quality of service. Having said that, Public Works is always looking at ways to enhance its efficiency, including leveraging data provided by the use of telematics on various pieces of equipment, and also the thoughtful consideration of systems and procedures used in other communities. One example comes to mind is the use of salt brine. In some communities, they have systems that use salt brine dispensers on equipment, but in the north, with our extremely cold temperatures, we found that wasn't practical. So Public Works is always interested in systems and possible opportunities, and I was happy to hear that they don't discount anything. I'd be remiss to not mention that snow removal costs are approximately $3,000 per hour, or $30,000 per day. So this is a big deal to our community in terms of cost. Having said that, the community felt that our snow removal strategy is designed well and is executed to a high standard, and we had no recommendations to bring to council tonight regarding snow removal. We moved on to just a small update from the Finance Department. As Council knows, we have many reserve accounts for various parts of the organization. And this year, we were able to reinvest some of those reserve accounts into GICs at our local credit union, which is, I believe, the first time ever or in a long time.
First time in a while since we had the crash of the interest rates.
Perfect. So that was nice to hear that we're able to make those investments in the community. Then we discussed a municipal revitalization tax exemption, and there's more to come on this file. The city has received a request for this tax exemption. The committee briefly discussed the process that would be undertaken to review it, and there is more to come at a forthcoming FSEC meeting. And our next meeting is next week, November 1st.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vic. Just to prove that that I read your reports very carefully, as I'm sure do the rest of council, there's a little typo in there, right in the center of page 1, where it says recommendation for reference only brought to the October 11th. I'm sure it should say the October 7th council meeting. Am I correct there? Because your meeting was held on October 11th.
So you would be correct, sir. Thank you.
Not a biggie. Okay, moving right along then. And the next item is admin report, or pardon me, we're through staff, or we're through committee reports. Now we go to admin reports. Admin report 106/23, Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program Application, Economic Transition Communication Project. Manager Reid to report. That was a real mouthful.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to receive council approval for an application to the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program, also called REDIP, for the 2023 intake. The Economic Transition Communication Project includes several tactics that aim to maximize the economic benefit of the Caribou Gold Project in the City of Quesnel, while also supporting small business and existing employers in the community. These tactics are supported by the Economic Development Transition Strategy, the Workforce Strategy, and the Forestry Think Tank. So tactics would include developing a workforce housing development strategy. Housing is a growing challenge for all major employers, including Northern Health, the School District, West Fraser, and Osisko, and this tactic is in direct response to this need. This was also included in our Housing Accelerator Fund application, but we don't have an outcome of that application yet, so we're including it in this one as well as a backup plan. Developing a Welcome to Quesnel guide to support employers in welcoming new employees to the region. Developing improved communication tools with the business community in order to better share information and improve uptake of relevant funding and training programs, and consultation for projects impacting the business community. Developing an online community profile tool, improving communication with prospective investors, current businesses, and decision makers. Developing a business retention and expansion survey, improving communication between the business community and the city, and updating the economic development transition strategy in light of changes in the local economy, work completed over the past 5 years, and the Blackwater and Caribou Gold projects moving forward. The grant does provide 100% funding, and I did not include it in here, but our approximate total budget is about $175,000. The recommendation is that Quesnel City Council supports the Economic Transition Communication Project application to the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program as the top priority application for Quesnel.
Okay, thank you, Manager Reid. If I could get a motion in support of the recommendation, then we'll have some discussion. Councillor Elliott and Councillor Goulet, any discussion? All in favor? Oh, no, now we go to discussion. Well, I guess I was right on track. We're going to go right to the vote. Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for that report. Now we go to Admin Report 104/23, UBCM Volunteer and Composite Fire Department Training and Equipment Grant Application, Coordinator Coppin to report.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to gain Council's approval to submit application for the Union of BC Municipalities Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Volunteer and Composite Fire Department Training and Equipment Grant Stream. Training is eligible for funding through the UBCM community through the fund, and this training will increase the capacity of the Quesnel Fire Department. The proposed projects include the following courses, being Emergency Scene Management 1 and Incident Scene Officer. The recommendation is that Quesnel City Council support the application to the UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Volunteer and Composite Fire Department Training and Equipment in the amount of $28,000 with no contribution required from the city.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's get a motion on the floor. So Councillor Rudenberg is moving, Councillor McKelvey is seconding. Any discussion? Hearing none, then I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next one is Admin Report 105/23, Visitor Guide, Manager Reid to report.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to receive direction from Council regarding the future of the Visitor Guide. In late 2021, Executive Committee directed staff to produce a new shortened version of the guide with no ad sales. So this guide was to be done for 2 years, and then we would revisit the decision to see if it was well received or whether we should change back to a longer guide or something different. The guide was used in 2022 and 2023 as a trifold guide with a cover and 5 pages of content, down from the previous 32-page guide, but no ad sales. With focused content and links to the new tourism website, the new guide can be edited annually with small changes. The previous guide contained multiple pages of listings, which were time-consuming to edit and which were often out of date by the time the guide was received from the printers. With a link to the online event calendar instead of annual listings, the guide can even carry forward for more than 1 year without becoming dated. The new guide has been well received by visitors who like to have something in print to take away, but appreciate a lighter guide that sticks to the main attractions. There has been some discussion of expanding the guide to include Wells and Barkerville. This would incur a one-time cost of about $1,000 to complete design edits and an additional annual cost of about $2,000 in printing. There would be an impact to the cost of shipping as well. And the recommendation is that Council provide staff with direction regarding the future of the guide.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll open the floor up to discussion as to which way we want to go with the future of the Visitor's Guide. Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question. Is it possible to source this out again and sell advertising to perhaps cover the cost so that it doesn't cost us any money? I know that was pretty successful before, so what are your thoughts?
So it did always cost us some money because we paid for the shipping of the guide in recent years. The previous contractor who was supplying the guide no longer wanted to provide the guide, and the Chamber of Commerce no longer wanted to manage that contract. Even when it was a longer form guide, it took on quite a lot more staff time to go through all of the content each year and make sure edits were correct and the branding was correct and everything. It took quite a lot more time than this current guide. I think in terms of staff time and actual dollar cost, it's not costing us more at this point.
Okay, are you good there? Do you need some more?
No,
okay, go ahead.
I'm just curious if we have, if any thought has been given to farming it out or putting it out into the community to see if we can find somebody else to do the visitor's guide and just kind of, not do that anymore as a city project, but.
So would the city manage the contract of producing the official guide? Because the Chamber of Commerce no longer wants to manage that contract. Previously, the Chamber of Commerce managed the contract for the city.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKelvey. I think I saw Councillor Runge. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So A simple question. Have we already reached out to Wells Barkerville with regards to possibly getting a little contribution from them? Maybe not all, but some. Have we talked to any of them there?
I think there's interest. I think we haven't talked about actual numbers.
All right. That being said, given that it's $1,000 and $2,000, I'd love to see it out of council initiatives. I would like to put a motion on the table that we do this and that we do include our surrounding area in it.
Okay, so okay, and have you got the gist of that motion?
Nope. Adding the additional page so that we include Wells Barkerville into the guide. And leaving it, yes, please, leaving it as it is. Thank you.
Okay.
And just one other thing, because I absolutely agree with you. This guide looks wonderful. The people that pick it up, they take it home. They have it with them. It's not too big. It's so kudos to everyone that's been producing it.
Okay, just for clarification, before I go to you, Councillor Vic, for clarification for Councillor Runge's resolution, did that include asking particularly Barkerville if they would be willing to contribute to that financial uptick?
I think that would be prudent to ask them to. I think, but you know what? If their budget only allows 1,000 or whatever, I still think we should go with it. It's not. It shouldn't be contingent on that. I think, as I'm a firm believer that Quesnel exists with Barkerville and Wells together. So with our whole surrounding community. So I think it should be done together.
Well, thank you, and I agree wholeheartedly that, I mean, as much as we like to maybe say and think otherwise, Barkerville is a major, major tourist attraction, not only for Quesnel, but for the entire region. Someone else had a comment? Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I definitely agree with Councillor Runge. I have a couple comments. So the guide itself, not only is it beautiful and its message is clean and clear, but it's also very lean. And I can see why there's positive feedback on the guide, because there's not a lot of fluff here. It's very precise, it's clean, its message is straightforward. And although I know there'd be participation for an ad-based guide, I think you'd lose that cleanliness, this clean image that's very lean. So for the cost involved, and I think Manager Reid articulated it well, there's significant staff costs, which isn't articulated necessarily here, but there would be significant staff costs to try and manage a larger guide. And then pertaining to the concept of including Wells and Barkerville, I think it makes sense from sustaining a partnership, promoting a partnership. I definitely agree that adding a page or two to support our partners in the north central Cariboo is a great idea. And then my last comment, Councillor McKelvey commented on the cost, and I agree. There might be another way to mitigate some of the cost, and I would propose that we approach the CCCTA, who is now collecting MRDT funding from our hoteliers in town. And although the question of sustaining funding for this brochure year over year is in question, I believe there may be an opportunity to help with the redesign, including Barkerville Wells, and they may be able to help us with that. Am I correct in that assumption there, Manager Reid?
We can ask them, yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Councillor Vic. Now I'm going to go to Councillor Rudenberg.
All right. I wasn't going to call point of order, but I don't think we have a second on the motion. Did you? I didn't see that. Okay, I apologize. So I noticed that it does ask for this to come out of the operational budget, so it's not necessarily going to come out of council initiatives. So your motion had said council initiatives. Did you want to? Did you catch that as council initiatives, or just that we do it, Ms. Hartley? Oh, okay, so it's not in the motion, okay, because I know that the councillor had mentioned out of council initiatives. So I don't need to say anything more because it has been seconded. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I just like, go ahead, Amy.
I had a question just on that as well. If we can use because we have no budget allocated this year, so if we could use council initiatives for the design changes in this year, the $1,000, and then it would be $2,000 from the operating budget going forward.
But that, I'll come back to you, Councillor Runge, but that would be subject to there being no additional funding coming from Barkerville. And I also have one suggestion before I go to Councillor Runge, and that is, have we considered for a modest fee, including in the brochure, because the brochure is going to be hard copy and online, a link to hospitality businesses that wish to be there? Because I could see that that is not going to really clutter the guide, but it's certainly going to strengthen the guide by providing live interactive contact with those businesses.
So all of our hospitality businesses are listed on our tourism website, and we're linking to our accommodations page, our food and drink page. All of those pages are there, and then we can keep those pages updated through the whole year as long as the guide is out there. Whereas if we're including individual links to the businesses and a new restaurant opens in March, they're not in the printed version of the guide that's out there. So we just do the link to the listings on the website.
Yeah, I can understand how ticklish it is, but I think, you know, in the actual hard copy visitor's guide, I would hope that there would be a link in there, let's say to Barkerville, just Barkerville generally, or Wells and so on. Where was I going? I had somebody else. Nobody else? Councillor Runge.
So just a little add-on to the guide, because I think it's really great, but I think we do have a whole. We have that one picture there of our Indigenous community in the soccer facility. I think we have, and I'm not sure how our links are with regards to the LHTAKO, DENE, and other nations around here, but there's been some fabulous developments that I'd love to also see in the guide, but I guess that would automatically happen already, right, with our Quesnel area. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just kudos to staff for putting this together. I've seen it transform over the years, and this is just much cleaner, tighter. It's a good thing. And I think we should continue on in the direction that we're going right now. But I'm going to throw a little cog in here that I don't think that we should be pumping up the tires of Wells and Barkerville so much. I get that there's a partnership there, but I really feel that we should be focusing on Quesnel and trying to drive people here. As the mayor mentioned, if we had a link to them, I mean, they've got a lot of advertising going on, and I'm not sure that there's any advertising in theirs about Quesnel itself and the attractions that we have. So just another way to look at it, but I will be supporting the version that you've created as of last year and the year before. It's great.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I've got a couple of comments here for myself. One is that on page 22 of 41, where we're looking at shopping and dining, and this just to prove that I read everything with a fine-tooth comb, Quesnel has 3 vibrant shopping districts and a beautifully revitalized downtown. I would suggest that we take the word "and" out and replace it with "including." Not a biggie, but just an observation. And also on the map on page 23 of 41, I think that we should, on that map, at least include Wells and Bowron on the eastern end of the Highway 26, and also that we should show that there is a road link out into the NASCO area. And I mean, as we all know, we're pushing for a recognized road link up towards the Blackwater Gold Project. I don't know if I've got the right name there. Armitage. And I think it would be useful to show that there are roads out there. Just a comment. So I think we're ready to vote on the resolution. There being no further discussion or questions, so I will call question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Now we're going to go to Admin Report 103/23, Official Community Plan and Zoning Amendment 668 Doherty Drive. Director Turner, you're up.
Mr. Mayor, if I can. I'd
Oh,
just
yes,
like to declare
I
a
realize
conflict.
that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to obtain council's authorization to draft new bylaws to amend the official community plan and the zoning bylaw to permit an 18-unit apartment at 668 Doherty. Just looking at the background, the applicants propose to convert the commercial building into a 15-unit apartment dwelling in 2021. The proposed development required an OCP and zoning amendment to allow the residential use only in the commercial area. A development permit was required for the change in form and character to reduce parking from 8 to 3 stalls. A variance was also required in that DP. Consultation and a public hearing were completed, and council provided third reading on May 3rd, 2022. Subject to the applicant submitting submitting the development permit application before final reading. This was not completed, and the amendment bylaw unfortunately lapsed May 3rd, 2023. The property owners have now submitted a second application, but this is to convert their commercial building into an 18-unit apartment, up to 18-unit apartment, among 3 separate levels. As we showed previously to council, but just making sure everyone recalls, the building department's review stated that it was sufficient building height to allow a 3-unit conversion of the 2-story commercial building, allowing 3 stories within the existing footprint of the envelope of the building. A preliminary floor plan is attached. The proponents will confirm full unit or the final unit numbers once there's some other technical drawings done, like the mechanical room and the electrical room. The development will require an OCP and a zoning amendment to allow for residential use only in this commercial area. Currently, commercial activities required on the ground floor only. There's a note of a covenant here that will need to be removed, and that's just kind of keep that on staff's agenda to make sure that that will be removed as it conflicts with the current development proposal. There will be a parking variance that will be looked at and considered by council through the DP. The zone will be, it's being recommended by staff to be completed as a spot zone. I did give you a little bit of an assessment of the different options there, but we are recommending that we do this by spot zone at this point, and do anything additional to that in a master zoning bylaw update. I also have gone into the official community plan amendments and what's required there. As it states there, the OCP is is moving along the lines of definitely requiring more affordable housing within all areas of the community, and it states the development it will be creating smaller units of affordable housing for singles and seniors, and ground floor units will be designed to be accessible in the rationale letter. I have stated out a couple of general policy amendments that I think are required in order to permit this in the OCP, and I've laid them out there. Let me know if you have any questions with regards to those. Basically, it's just specifying in the OCP that in this specific area, we can consider allowing residential on the ground floor, and that we will continue to encourage multi-use development on a site-by-site basis in commercial areas.
Okay.
So I'll go to the recommendation, and then
Yeah,
if we
go
want to
ahead.
go. Yeah. So the recommendation is that council direct staff to draft bylaws to amend the official community plan and zoning bylaw to allow for the conversion of the commercial building at 668 Doherty Drive into an apartment up to 18 units for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you. So moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Rudenberg. Any discussion? Councillor Vic.
Pertaining to the parking on page 2 of 4, you make mention to covered bike storage spaces. Is it correct in saying it's just for 5 bicycles in total, or does each storage accommodate more than 1 bicycle?
That it's 2 parking stalls. Oh, sorry, no, actually, I'm just talking about it is 5 spaces.
So for
5 bikes.
bicycles?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand the principle of the development may not require parking, but it stands to reason that if those residents are taking transit, then there's a higher propensity to use scooters or bicycles or motorized scooters, which I see a lot of people using these days. Is best practices that maybe we should require more than 5?
Again, this would require a variance because we typically would require more than 5 for this development. So that'll be a requested variance as well, right, for the bicycle stalls. So typically, yes, I think this is a case where we'd like to see more. I think the footprint is very limited in this building, and I think they're weighing off obtaining more units with adding more bicycle storage.
Councillor Runge.
Thank you. So a little bit of clarification. So in the past iteration of this, 15 units, were those on 2 floors or were those on 3 floors?
They were still on the 3 floors, yes.
So we've moved from already a nervousness about the number of units and the lack of parking and bike parking to more units and less parking. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I believe we need the housing. I think that's vitally important, but I think we really should consider having more bicycle storage or electric scooter storage on this site for the 18 units. Given that our buses don't run all the time, given all the things that are going on, given that what you see, if I'm without a vehicle, I might have a bike. I might have a scooter, as Councillor Vic said. So I don't know where we bring this up. Like, do we bring it up now to say, listen, I'm okay. Can we maybe make it 14 units and have enough parking for the residents? Or is it not feasible at that time? And I'm not sure if Mr. Dillon's in the crowd here, or I asked you that question.
Thank you. This is why I am bringing it early, even before drafting the bylaws, because I would like to get. I know council did have a nervousness for the amount of units and the size of units, and as well as the lack of parking. So that's why it is coming forward to council at this point. Any discussions we can take back to the developer.
Okay, so I'm sensing that there is a desire to go back to the developer to see if we can find some more space, not for vehicles, but rather for scooters and bikes and that type of transportation. Councillor Runge.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that presupposes the OCP amendment that the spot zoning, or maybe that's subject to. I don't know what goes first, here in this case. But I do think it's important that we have a little bit more storage or parking available.
Thank you. The OCP amendments will be the same regardless of number of units and the parking. The required the zoning amendment might be different though, because we'll be talking about the number of units as a spot zone within that. So we really need to hunker down on those units. We are still talking about the units anyway, because there's some, as I discussed in the report, some room to discuss of where a mechanical room would be and et cetera. So we can definitely ask if the proponents are willing to find more space for more storage units as well.
Okay,
or more bike storage.
Go ahead, Councillor Vic.
I'll just add one little anecdote to that. I think it's in the developer's interest to try and provide a little bit more storage for bikes and scooters, because in my other life, we accommodated for that, and we believe in the apartment that we use with the Lions, we've prevented damage to our units because residents aren't trying to smash through the hallways with their scooters and bicycles. They're stored in a very secure, reinforced room that doesn't suffer damage. So I think it would probably be in the interest of the developer to give a little bit more storage and save the damage to the units themselves. So whether or not it drops from 18 to 17 or 16 and provide a little extra room for bikes and scooters, I think it's a worthwhile conversation, and I think the developer would probably agree that he wouldn't want to have his units damaged unduly.
Okay, so I think we're maybe ready to move to the recommendation, but with a caveat in there that we direct staff to, with the developer, to investigate the potential for added bicycle / scooter, et cetera, storage. Did you, Councillor Runge, did you want to make a motion or
No, I think,
more comment?
No, I think the motion. I just have one other question. That covenant in 2000, in February 2000, that restricted it to just commercial. Did we ever find out the reasoning for that? Because now we're doing a roundabout from commercial to just residential, and I'm just not privy to that information from prior.
Thank you. It's irrelevant. It was based on an old application for old uses, so it's really not relevant to this application at all. But it was. You're right. We're doing a reversal. It was probably to protect parking. Yeah.
Okay, just to refresh my memory, staff, do we have a mover and a seconder yet?
Yes, we do.
We do? Okay, so are we ready to vote then? You're clear on the resolution and what it includes? Okay, so no further discussion, no further questions. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next item is actually a late item, and that is Admin Report 107/2023 Airports Capital Assistance Program Grant Replacement for the Sweeper at the Quesnel Regional Airport. We go to Director Norburn for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to obtain a resolution of support to enter into an agreement with Transport Canada to obtain a grant under the Airports Capital Assistance Program, or ACAP, for the replacement of a sweeper at the Quesnel Regional Airport. We submitted an application under the program for the equipment and received confirmation this week that the grant was successful. In order to proceed, we require a certified resolution to enter into the contribution agreement with the federal government. The recommendation is that Quesnel City Council approves entering into an Airports Capital Assistance Program contribution agreement with His Majesty the King in right of Canada for up to $491,500 for the replacement of a sweeper at the Quesnel Regional Airport, and further that Quesnel City Council agrees to assume all project costs above the level approved by the Minister, being $491,500, and further that Council authorizes the Director of Corporate and Financial Services to sign the contribution agreement on behalf of the City of Quesnel.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Runge, you're moving it, and Councillor Vick is seconding it. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Runge.
Yes, thank you. So to Director Norburn, that $491,500, is that enough to buy a sweeper, or are current prices of those sweepers significantly more or less?
That's our understanding, but we'll obviously find out, I guess, and when we put it out to bid. But yeah, when it was submitted, that was the estimated price that, staff had found. So we trust that that number will still hold up. But we won't really know until we put it out to bid and we get bids.
So just as a follow-up then, so should it come out at $600,000, what budget would that come out of? The airport budget?
Well, I'm presuming that they have to come back to council with a request to find the other funding. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Okay, anything further before I call question on the motion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Council. The next item is the council information package, and there was nobody that, this was an oversight on my part. I just want to mention that there is a letter in the council information package from the North Central Local Government Association wherein they are supporting the Quesnel Interconnector project, so that is important, and we're actually moving to phase 2 of our program to generate support for the interconnector project. We have written to all municipalities and regional districts in the North Central area, and we've had some pretty good response, but the next phase will involve follow-up letters to the municipalities and regional districts that have not yet responded, and we will also be sending letters to stakeholder transportation companies that are in the North Central area, and that includes trucking companies, major industry, the Port of Prince Rupert, First Nations, BC Ambulance, Northern Health, professional, we're going to do a professional sales and business plan on the whole project. I'm going to be corresponding with Opposition Leader Falcon and Restad to get their support. At one time, I remember that Kevin Falcon, when he was the Minister of Highways, and they were doing a little ribbon cutting for a paving project on Highway 26 out to the Wells-Barkerville area, and then the then Minister of Highways, Kevin Falcon, actually characterized Quesnel, and this is his words, as the worst choke point on Highway 97 between Quesnel and Cache Creek, and I'm going to hold him to that.
You're going to quote him.
Yeah, and also we'll be adding in the North Central Local Government Association resolution, and we're basically pulling all of this information for a trip to Victoria by yours truly and maybe a staff member. We haven't figured that out yet, to actually meet with the minister. If we can't meet the minister at UBCM, we're going to go down there and beat on his door so that we can meet with him. So stay tuned. Under correspondence, we have a letter from School District 28 requesting a letter of support for Child Care New Spaces Fund. And Councillor Tony, you're going to recuse yourself again?
I will, and just for point 2, I have this item, and then the next item is a bylaw. Just the next 2 items, because the
Who's not paying the hydro bill?
I still have mine.
So those that
We received a letter October 19th from School District 28. Quesnel School District is applying for the Child Care BC New Spaces Fund primary stream. The funding is available to support the creation of new child care spaces in our community. The proposal would provide our community with infant, toddler, 3 to 5-year-old, and before and after school care spaces for a total of 61 new spaces. The proposed site is located alongside the new school being built in the Carson Flats area. As a community partner, we're hoping you will compose a letter supporting the necessity for new child care spaces in Quesnel.